views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this podcast are the content creator's own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of Essex County College. The material and information presented here is for entertainment and informative purposes only. It should not be considered as professional advice or a substitute for seeking professional guidance.
Okay.
Stay in your lane. What we said, stay in your lane. What we said, ready, set, goes. Ready, set, goes. Ready, set, goes. Ready, set, goes. Hello. Welcome. What are you doing over there? Come back over here. I'm here. Today we have Stay in Your Lane. Welcome to the podcast. Happy Monday. How are you guys doing? So today we're changing up things a little bit, all right, for this episode. So we're going to be having an amazing person in the studio with us today. So we're going to be doing an interview, okay? So I hope you guys went and go out and check out the last episode 10. It was amazing. There is one episode where it's, I give you guys my inspirational talk. Go check that out. That came out last Monday. It's the self-care. Go and get it. The action plan for the next 2 months. And then the one after that we have is with Terrell, which is amazing. Part 2. Go check out that business plan. All right. So today in the studio, before I go into things, let me just introduce myself again. My name is Samanta. Welcome to the Stay in Your Lane podcast. Check us out on YouTube and also Spotify. I'm the vice president of the business club and the president of the podcast club. All right.
Funny.
Yeah, gotta put a little joke in there. Maybe. No, let's do. Oh, there we go. Applause.
That's more like it.
That's more like it, right? So what am I laughing for? So today I have in the studio with me a very incredible, handsome young man. His name is Chidara, a.k.a. Sage.
Yes, it is me, Sage the Cancer of the Polar Bears podcast.
Ooh, welcome. So, guys, Sage is you have your podcast, and it's called The Polar
Bears podcast.
The Polar Bear podcast.
Yes.
So let me just rewind that back and give him back a better introduction. So today we have in the studio with us the author of the amazing podcast, The Polar Bears. Not only that, he's a director for
Direct service provider.
Direct service provider. Forgive my little accent, guys. I have the tongue twister. But not only that, he's a self-sustaining adult. So he want me to make sure to put that out because that's a big investment for him. Okay. So before I dive into things, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm happy to be here.
You are happy to be here.
Happy to finally be in the Stay in Your Lane podcast.
There you go.
Yeah.
Welcome. We're about to find out how you stay in your lane, how you doing if you be swerving and learning.
Hey, trust me, I be swerving. I definitely do not stay in my lane. So watch out for your lane because I might be in it.
What you doing over there? Don't be getting caught up in somebody else's traffic, okay?
I get caught in a lot of traffics.
Oh, no. You're about to stay in your lane. Got to keep your eyes on your lane. So, Sage, I want to ask you, how do you come up with the Polar Bears?
Ooh, the Polar Bears podcast.
Yes.
The Polar Bears podcast is the podcast that is hosted by me, Sage the Cancer, and my co-host, Maddie. Maddie's definitely missed. She had an episode on your show, but that's my co-host. And I came up with that podcast because as a new student at Essex County College, I wanted to start up a podcast after hearing about the podcast club. And I thought that podcasting is something I was really interested in, but I never had an avenue to start my own show or even be involved in any aspect in terms of production or putting out episodes, anything of that sort.
Okay.
So Mr. Ott gave me the opportunity to start my own show, and I was definitely anxious prior to starting that show because I had no idea how to host a show or what that entails. Like, do I have to change my personality just to host a show? Do I have to bring in guests every week? Do I have to start thinking about production, pre-production, post-production? Like, what does that even?
Oh my God.
What does that even entail?
Go ahead.
But he encouraged me to just get in there and just do just start out with something. Just put your best foot forward. So I came up with the idea of Polar Bears as a space where we have polarizing conversations about a variety of topics, and we hear our both sides and try to find a middle ground.
Okay, that's amazing. I like how you put it. You said that you always wanted to start a podcast, but you never know which avenue to actually go into. But the
Yeah.
opportunity was granted to you, and you just step into it. So, just
Yeah,
like
I had
that.
to just dive in, because sometimes you just have to dive in. You just have to get in there and just do something, make a move.
So I consider that, as I always tell everyone, because I advise everyone know that I'm a part of the podcast. I think many of us has a creative mind and things that we want to do, but sometimes we're afraid to actually step out and do it because of fear, right? So I look at it as you're building a foundation, and it's trials and errors, right? You don't have to be perfect, not because you don't know what you're doing. You start, and that's the biggest thing. You understand? That's going to get you to the next step, because your mistakes is going to help you to create the roadmap in making the polar bear of what you envision it to be. So would you say that currently you're having any obstacles currently?
First off, I'm gonna bring that back to the fear of failure that you just touched on. That is a huge obstacle that I had to overcome, even with starting this podcast and many other aspects of my life. I'm gonna get I'm about to share something a little personal, but
Go ahead. You can continue.
yeah, like I said, I've struggled a lot with the fear of failure throughout my life, and I think that that's something that I inherited from my parents, and I'm gonna explain.
Go ahead. Yes, I was going to ask you to elaborate on that.
Yes. So I actually had this discussion with my mom, and I brought it up to her, and I said to her that I think you raised me with the fear of failure. And she was shocked. She was like, "Why would you say that? I would not want to raise you in a way where you're afraid of, taking on risks or trying new things." But I said to her that is indeed how you raised me. And I explained to her that in her upbringing, her family was not necessarily rich or came from riches.
So you said to your mom that you think she raised you with the fear of failure, and her response was what?
Yeah, she was like, "What? Why would you even say that? Like, why would I raise you with the fear of failure?" And that's when I got into my explanation. I told her, like, I had to give her like a very elaborate explanation.
Okay.
So she grew up poor.
All right.
Her mother was so I'm Nigerian by descent. I grew up in Nigeria. So my mom was brought up in Nigeria. Her mother owned a restaurant.
Okay.
And her restaurant was a way of income. So she ran the restaurant enough to be able to provide the basics of life for her children, which is my mother. And with that, my mother did not have a lot of privileges as a child. So in her mindset, she had to make choices without taking risks. She had to make the most the safest choice.
Okay, so I was going to say the
choice.
easier to what
The
was more
easy-
comfortable
Exactly.
within her. Okay.
So, and with that, she went to school, got a job, went through the normal transition from childhood to adulthood, and she did everything the safe way to make sure that she would not incur any
Failure?
failure from taking risks.
Okay.
And as you know, more risk, more reward.
More risk, more reward. So do you think that she went that route because of her upbringing?
I think that she went that route because of her upbringing. And with that, you kind of raise your children the way you were raised. Mm-hmm. And so I believe that she then put that mindset of making the safest choice into her children. So now, for me, growing up, my mindset was to make the safest choice in everything I did. So I would not take risks. I would not try new things. I would not put myself out there. I would just do the not the minimum, but what I felt was safe to me, what made me comfortable. So with that brought on a lot of, for me, I dealt with a lot of social anxiety. I was not a talker as a kid.
You could have tricked me.
I was not a talker as a kid. I kept to myself. I didn't take any risks. I didn't try a lot of new things. I didn't look into new avenues. I just stayed in my lane.
Stay in your lane, okay? So would you say, with all that you just said, which is a mouthful, which is a lot, because we realize that as a young kid, the way how we were raised actually kind of define the future us as an adult, right? And sometimes some of our childhood ways, we may take it with us, right? And that foster from the way our parents actually raised us.
Right.
And some parents, I think, sometimes they're protecting us in trying to make sure that they may do what they're used to in the safer way. They think that that's best for them. You understand? So when you mentioned that fear of failure, your mom is the one that raised you like that. I think it's great that you actually found the ground with the rooting. I could say, I don't remember the accent. You understand? The root
yes, cause of it.
The root cause of it. And actually identify that issue and wanting to change it and not do what your mom did
exactly
in the past.
And I also want to say that I don't blame her for raising me that way. That was the smartest way to raise her child at that time. Okay. So, and that also, it came with a lot of benefits, but just for growing up, you, like you said, you sometimes you have to let go of those, your childhood characteristics, yes, the stuff that you grew up on. Sometimes you have to let go of. Mm-hmm. So that's one of those things for me that I had to let go of.
How long did it take you to actually?
I'm still on that journey. I'm still on that journey. Starting this podcast is me on that journey, because this is something that I just dove in. Like I just got in there and got cooking, you know?
Okay, so this is one step with you coming out of that fear of failure, doing something that is risky, yes, and actually taking on that opportunity. So who would you say, Sage, you mentioned that you grew up in Nigeria. That's where you were born?
Yes, that's where I was born.
When did what age did you came to the United States?
I moved to the United States between 12 and 13.
And what was the shocker for you?
Ooh, the shocker.
Yeah.
So I would say it was a huge culture shift.
Yes.
So growing up in Nigeria, you're expected to be conservative. Conservative meaning like modest in the way you speak, the way you do things, the way you move around, the way you interact with people.
Okay.
I would say that there was a shift in that when I did move to the United States, and it was different. Like, people were not necessarily expected to be conservative. You can speak freely, you can move freely, you can express yourself in a numerous amount of ways.
In the United States.
Yeah, and that obviously comes with its pros and cons, because you will have delinquents, but you also will have people who are willing to push the boundaries and create great things.
Okay. So I would say you start high school here, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you came here with your mom?
I came here with my whole family.
Oh, you came here with your entire family?
Yes.
So did you speak English?
Yeah, because English is the official language in Nigeria. So.
And what's the second language?
So English is the official language, but we do have indigenous languages Igbo, Yoruba, Hausa.
Okay.
Yep.
So, are you the oldest sibling
I am the second sibling out of 4.
out of 4? Boy, girl?
First is a boy. Second is a no. First is a girl. How did I get that wrong?
Because you want to be the first.
Nah, not me forgetting about my siblings.
Okay. So you're the second out of the.
Second out of 4.
Okay. So are you a first generation college?
What does that mean?
First generation mean are you the first person in your family to go to college from your mom?
You know what? I think that actually takes on a new definition for immigrants whose parents went to college in a different country.
Yeah.
Because people whose parents went to college in a different country, that didn't necessarily translate in the United States. So their degrees are not necessarily usable in the United States. So I would say that I'm a first generation college student, even though my sister did go to college and she's ahead of me.
Okay.
So does that count?
So your sister is in college.
My sister is in college.
So she's a first generation. Okay, so you're the second. Okay, so
Yeah.
you're keeping it going. So I will go back. I have a question. What does stay in your lane mean to you?
What does stay in your lane mean to me?
Yeah.
Actually, when I hear stay in your lane, I think of minding your business and doing the thing, doing you, and not necessarily doing the, I don't want to say the bare minimum, but doing things that are suitable for you. So not necessarily, that would be not putting yourself out there, and not being involved in the lives of others, not caring about things that do not affect you.
And that's exactly what it is. So for each person, everybody has a different vision or how they stay in their lane, right?
Right.
So
Can I ask what it means to you? I'm curious.
Sure. So what all of what you just said about, minding your business, for one. When you mind your business, what you do, you focus your tunnel vision. You focus on what's in front of you, right? You focus on what you need to get done within your life and not within somebody else's life, right? So that's you staying in your lane of that. So that's a good thing. That's how I see it too. So the reason why I put this podcast, stay in your lane, it means I did look at it as a professional aspect at first, because there's this lady, her name is Sarah Johnson. That's where I actually got the name from. Stay in your lane. So she did an episode. She's a preacher, actually. Okay. So she did a episode, and it's called Stay in Your Lane. And there was something that actually spoke to me, like really like in my soul, where she said that God can be in your lane and in somebody else's lane. Sometimes we may start a journey and then something kind of demotivate us, and then we end up coming out of that lane and go into something else, not knowing that we go into a lane that doesn't even make sense because we're thinking we're not good enough for the prior thing that we're actually destined for. And then sometimes we may go back to that thing. So why not master the lane that you're in? And then after that, you can always branch out to something else. For me, I love modeling. I love actually business. So that's why I'm doing business currently right now. So I was in modeling, and a situation happened with me with, my ankle and every single thing in a car accident. I ended up coming out of that lane and everything, going to something else where I think would be better off. And then over the course of the past few years, I realized, like, why did I steer away from that when I could have mastered that lane? It's very broad, you understand, because I always find myself going back. So stay in your lane is having tunnel vision on what you need to do, figuring out your life, and not actually going in somebody else's traffic. You understand? Because sometimes we can get caught up into that, of that nature. But sometimes we swirl out of our lane and then we come right back. It can be professional and it can be personal of that. Because sometimes we make outside noise kind of drive us from what we actually need to do. So I like your definition, and I hope you do. So how do you actually continue learning and growing within your lane?
First off, I think that that's a great philosophy, and I think that you should stay in your lane most of the time, but sometimes you kind of do have to branch out. And like you said, it's difficult knowing when to stay or when to go, when to change your lane and go into something different. I'm gonna give an analogy, like you're driving and sometimes your lane is blocked off and you need to get into the next lane so you can keep going. So how do you decipher when you should stay in your lane or when you should change lanes?
Well, I like the analogy that you did, right? So when you're in a traffic and just say there is a 2-lane, right? And you're maybe on the left side. That's the fast lane. That's what they always say, right? The fast lane is
I'd definitely be in the fast lane.
The right one is the more slower one. Say you're in traffic and you're in the left lane, which is the fast lane. You're going to know when to, if you want to get out of that lane, because you think, okay, it's maybe the traffic is going more better in the right lane. Let me get out of this lane, because you have no patience, right, of going to where you're going. So then you're going to make sure to look in your rearview mirror in order to go to the right. You're not going to just swerve and go to the right when there's a next incoming car coming. What's that's going to happen? It may cause a car accident, right? So you're going to know the timing of when to swerve over in the next lane. But then you may swerve over in the next lane and then you start driving, and what happened? You end up back in even worse. You get stuck in a worse traffic. And when you look to the left, the lane that you just came out of is just moving. It's just going. What that teaches you is that you don't have patience. Sometimes we kind of give up, and it comes with obstacles too. Sometimes things may get hard and we kind of give up in thinking this is not working out. Let me just move on and go to the next thing. Not knowing that if you had a little more patience and master that, you could have actually hit the finish line. And then after there, you can always go to something else if you want to. But there's people that swerve from one lane to the next lane to the next lane, and what happened? They don't end up reaching nowhere. Yeah. You get what I'm saying? So that's what that means to me. Not meaning that you can't go into something else. When you're in your lane, you just need to focus on you. Focus on your life. Focus on what you're doing. Not focus on somebody else. Traffic.
Okay, I like that. I like that analogy as well. So you mentioned looking in your rear view. So that, to me, that means doing a lot of self-reflection and it takes a lot of discernment to know when to switch lanes. So in this analogy, you're not switching lanes because you see another car going forward. You're switching lanes because you have that discernment and you've done all that self-reflection to know when you need to be in a different lane to move forward. So that comes from within yourself.
In making that, that comes from within yourself. And so there is, I forgot what the terminology is when it comes to the ik. So there's two parts of the mind, right? It's the one where it's the ego, and it's the one that's the id. It's where you kind of like, one man is saying go, and the next one is saying no. And the ego is saying, yeah, you can do it. Go over there on everything. So that's where you're trying to make that decision right there and then. But sometimes it may work out, sometimes it may not. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But the goal of both of it is to stay in your lane, because even when you swerve over on the next side, you got to make sure that there's no other traffic or anything coming.
And I think it's difficult for us as humans and as people in general, because these decisions are not easy decisions at all. So to the people out there listening, don't beat yourself up when you feel like you haven't made the right decision every time, because it will take a lot for you to switch lanes and make that right decision.
It does takes a lot, and it does takes a lot of self reflection and everything. But have you ever swerved out of your lane? You mentioned earlier that you've been swerving and everything like that. So what has been happening?
I've definitely swerved out of my lane. I'm gonna give a little story time. So of recent, I've been dealing with a lot of mental health struggles. So I haven't been in the best state of mind. I would consider that for me a swerve out of my lane, because physically and mentally, I haven't felt myself in a while. And it's been a bit of a struggle getting back into feeling myself and getting back into my routines and my ways of doing things.
And why do you think you have not been feeling yourself lately?
I think that's due to, first off, I think for me, it's definitely a cycle. I think that this is not the first time this has happened to me, and this would not be the last time it's gonna happen to me. But I've been it's a cycle of me trying to maintain my mental health and my mental stability. And this is, I feel like for me right currently, it's just a hiccup. It's just a roadblock.
Okay, I understand that. But what do you think has triggered that? There has to be a root of something that has triggered that for you to be feeling mentally unstable. So it can stem from maybe something that you have not achieved. It can stem from something that you think you're fearful from. It can stem from somewhere where you think you were supposed to be, but you're not there in life. So different things trigger those type of emotions. So what is it?
Okay, for me, I'm going to get even more personal. I have a history of dealing with depression and anxiety.
Okay.
So, and that there's numerous amount of causes for that. But for me, I think it is, or from my discussions with my psychiatrist, I've discovered that for me, it's an imbalance of chemicals in my brain. So I do think that my brain is just misfiring, and it's up to me to take the steps to regain that balance.
So do you think, did you develop that from, do you have any childhood trauma that you have suffered?
Do I have childhood trauma?
Yeah, that you think that actually contributes to that?
I think everyone does. I think everyone does have a form of childhood trauma. For me, I would say so, but I don't think that that's the predominant cause of my depression or anxiety.
And that's it. I don't know what your psychiatrist or your psychiatrist whichever,
So a
said.
psychiatrist would be the one who prescribes
Prescribe the
medication, and a therapist or a
nurse,
psychologist would be
one
someone
that
you
you
talk
talk to.
to, talk therapy and all that stuff.
Yeah. So I've learned, because back in October. I've never done therapy, but I've done therapy after my third surgery. So I was in therapy. And
Is
the
that
school,
physical therapy?
physical and mental therapy.
Mental therapy.
The school actually helped me. So Cassandra, she's the counselor for mental health.
Shout out to Miss Cassandra. I know her
Miss
as well.
Johnson, yes.
She's amazing.
I
She's
love
great.
her. She's so amazing. I'm going to be bringing her on to interview her.
Oh,
But yes, so she's the one that connects me to actually, I see in both of them. So what I've learned is sometimes things that, how old are you?
21 years old.
21. You're finally legal. Congratulations.
Hey, I can drink now.
You can drink now. But I've learned that certain things in our adult age, remember, we don't just become adult just like that. We were baby first. So things that actually happen in our childhood sometimes creep up with us in our adulthood. And sometimes certain things that we kind of suffer from as a childhood, things that we suppressed and maybe pushed aside, is the thing that caused the chemical imbalances, the thing that caused our depression in some way. Because someplace in our childhood, there is something that's triggered us in some way. Maybe it could be loneliness, it could be self-love. You never loved, like different type of things within our childhood maybe trigger us in our adulthood in certain way. Sometimes we can't identify it right away, but it does actually contribute to that behavior. Because you're 21, I'm very sure at the age of 21, you did not just develop depression or feeling this type of way at 20 years old or at 18 years old. You understand? So when you reflect and go back, if you look at the pattern, there is something in your childhood that actually made that happen. You understand? And that's where therapy and everything is there from. And you mentioned that you're in a particular season right now that triggers that imbalance that you're in. So does it happen around this time?
Every
or does
year?
it just creep up? Does it just happen like at any given time?
I think a part of it is seasonal. So around this time when it starts getting from transitioning from summer to winter, so during that fall period, I do tend to feel down, or I do tend to feel not myself per se. So I do think that a bit of it is seasonal.
And you feeling down? Do you live alone?
I I do live alone. I have roommates, but I live alone. I don't know if
So
you understand what I'm
did
trying
you
to say.
just at what age you
I
become
moved out
start
of my
rooming?
parents' house when I was 18, 19 years old.
Okay, so as an
I
adult.
just turned 19, yeah.
So before you moved out to your parents' house, were you a mama's boy?
No,
You weren't a mama's
I
boy?
was not a mama's boy.
So where do you grow up? I didn't ask you that earlier.
I grew up in East Orange, Newark.
East Orange, Newark.
Yeah.
So in school, you were the shy kid you mentioned.
Yeah, I would say I grew up as a shy kid.
Yeah.
I really started to get out my shell right at the end of high school, and after getting out of high school, I started to get out my shell a little more.
Did you play any sports in high school?
I was on the track team. I was a jumper though, so I did high jump and long jump.
Did you grow up with your mom and dad?
I grew up with my mom and dad, but we definitely did not get along really well, I would say,
Your mom or your dad or both?
with both of them.
So you wasn't on a side where you didn't listen to them?
I wouldn't say that per se. Even though looking at it in hindsight, there were certain things I could have done better, I guess, in terms of listening. But I will say that I really craved independence.
Okay.
So it was I struggled with taking, I don't want to say taking instruction, but with feeling controlled. I don't know if that's something you can relate to.
Feeling control, meaning like your parents telling you what to do, where to go.
Yeah, in a sense, yeah.
So you felt that way from your teenage years.
From my teenage years, yep.
So that's where you don't take their advice or anything. You start being a man from a young age.
Yeah, and I do think that is a characteristic of growing up and becoming a man. But when you say things like, "Oh, you're not taking advice," or "You're not listening to people," that kind of has a negative connotation to it. And for me, I don't think it was strictly negative, like it was a negative response to my parents. I think that some of the things that I did have positive effects, like me wanting to be more independent, me taking care of myself, me becoming more organized, me getting out there and getting into the labor force. So me starting to work and earn an income for myself. I think those are positive things, but but by saying, "Oh, you're not taking advice, listen to your parents," that could make it look negative.
So there is always a positive and there is always a negative, right? Because sometimes the things that we want to do, and as you mentioned that when you were younger, you started acting like a man, right? Before you reach the age of
To act
doing
like a
man, to
man.
act like a man. And then you also mentioned that you always doesn't like to be controlled. And as a kid, especially a teenager, our parents is the one that lead us, right? Our parents is the one that we look up to actually take care of us in certain way. So you as a younger kid that take on that responsibility and have the mindset of don't want to be controlled, that's the negative towards it because it makes you not listen 100% in taking advice of what your parents saying because you're going to feel like you felt like they were controlling you in certain aspect.
Yeah.
So there's a negative and there's a positive. The positive, if you wanted to be independent, that's very good. But at the age that you were at, you weren't there yet to be independent. So that lead to certain you being disobedient in certain area because you felt like you're a man. You
So I guess I'm a
understand?
little hard headed.
Yes, so you would put it at that. So it's gonna, as I said, it's gonna have the negative and it's gonna have the positive. So I'm gonna bring it back around. So you become a man at the age of 13.
Is that a question? Is that a question?
Yeah.
Do I become a man at the age of 13?
Yes.
No.
So when did you went on in the labor force?
Oh, when did I start working?
Yes.
At the age of about 15.
Okay.
Yeah, but I was working for myself though, not necessarily I didn't have like people depending on me.
All right.
Yeah,
So now you just take care of yourself.
I do take care of myself, and I had a cat.
Okay, that's very good. You're being very responsible. Give him an applause for that. So I asked you that about your background just to see have an understanding, because I'm trying to see the fall season that we're in right now, which they call it the cuddling season, because that's where it gets a little bloomy and it gets dark very early and everything like that.
That's why you need to get a little body to lay with.
Yes, you can lay with your pillow. You understand? It's midterm. Let's make sure we pass those midterm first and everything like that. So you feeling uncomfortable? How are you doing now mentally?
So the past week or two I've definitely been making improvements mentally. I've been focusing a lot on staying consistent with my routines, adopting a lot of discipline to stay in my lane. Being a lot more focused on the things I have to get done, knowing that it's never really going to get any easier. I just have to get it done and get it out the way. Mm-hmm. And yeah. Okay. Those things have helped me get back into a better mental state.
So you focusing on more self-care.
Yes.
And they said it takes like 21 days for you to actually get into a routine once you start something. And that's one of the things that I talk about my last episode. So it's only 60 days in the month of that. And your mental state kind of trigger. What do you think you haven't achieved?
So far?
Yes, for 2024.
For 2024.
Yes.
2024 has been a weird year because there's been a lot of changing lanes for me this year. So it's hard for me to say what I haven't achieved. Because at the start of the year, I did not even expect to be back in school. My goal was to, cause I worked in IT support and in the IT support field, so even relating that to my major right now, which is computer science, my goal was to land a job and get more experience within my field. So I was working on a lot of certifications and applying to a lot of positions to get a job. But obviously that is not how 2024 went, and I'm back in school. So I would say a huge goal of mine right now that I haven't achieved is to maintain and get a 4.0 GPA this semester.
Okay, so I hope you focus on the things that you need to get done, and I hope your mental state. I hope whatever you think you haven't achieved or wanting to achieve, I hope you actually put it to pen and paper, put that action plan in place, and I hope we're in the last 4 quarters. Only 60 days remaining.
It went by so fast.
It goes by very fast. This week is gonna be the first week of October. So I have a question. How can listener actually apply your insight to their life?
How can a listener apply that to their lives? Mm-hmm. So there are 4 things I say to myself every day as of recently. One is to stay consistent. That consistency is the key. And my math teacher had a saying, be careful what you spend your time on because you will get good at it. So just remain consistent whatever you're doing because consistency is the key. 2 is if you keep hoping for it to get better or easier, it's probably not. So you just have to do it anyways. Get it done. 3, you got to be disciplined. discipline, meaning that you're not always doing the things that you want to do, but you're doing the things that you need to do.
I love that.
And 4 is, what's the last one?
Okay, keep thinking about
okay,
it.
I got it.
Okay, go ahead.
I got it. And the 4th one is happiness comes from within you. You do not find happiness in people, places, or things. So you have to work on finding happiness in your everyday activities.
Happiness is the number one thing. So as we're coming to a close, I only have like 2 more questions for you. You're on my list, and then one personal. I heard you said something, and I wanted to ask you this. How do you actually handle criticism?
How do I handle criticism?
Yes, along with failure and setbacks.
I'm very open to criticism, and I think that with criticism, it has to be constructive, and people have to be telling you why, or giving you a reason for criticism, as well as a path to a solution. So I accept criticism from people who give me reasons and a path to a solution.
Okay, so you're very open.
Within reason, yes.
To hear back feedback.
Yeah, but I also do believe that you kind of have to trust the process and trust in yourself. So with criticism, always remember to trust the process.
That's so true. So what's the biggest challenge you have faced while staying in your lane currently, in the new lane that you're in?
Ooh, the biggest challenge I face is being disciplined, honestly. So I'm big on fitness, or big in fitness. I like to work out. And that has led me to be more strict in my nutrition and things that I eat. So even just being disciplined enough to not eat snacks and not eat all the sugars and carbs has something that I've had to adopt. So, and not even just in the fitness aspect of things, just like I said, not necessarily doing what I want to do, but doing what I need to do has been tough. But, you know, it's a journey, and I'm going to stay on it.
Well, I hope you stay consistent. That's one of the things that tie to our mood and everything. Because when we feel like we're not doing what we're supposed to do, it actually messed with our mental state. So what's the importance of self-awareness in this current time that you're in trying to find a consistency?
Self-awareness is huge.
In staying focused.
Self-awareness is huge. I feel like you need the ability to look within yourself and self-reflect, and to listen to your inner self.
Yes.
And that is not a particularly easy task, because your mind's natural response would be to seek opinions from others.
Yes.
Think about it. Even in the age of social media, it's kind of hard to create or adopt your own ideas, because we easily get on your phone and you look into, if you have a new idea or a new thought, you're like, let me look it up on the internet and see what other people think about this.
That's where
so
self-awareness.
Yeah.
Finish your thought.
Yeah, so it's bring that back to self-awareness. Sometimes you have to listen to your own self and find out what your inner thoughts are first before seeking the opinions of others.
You got to put yourself first of that. So do you have any personal quote that you actually say to yourself daily?
Personal quotes?
Yes.
Personal quotes, I would say, I think I already said them. I'm just gonna repeat them. Happiness comes from within. Consistency is key. Discipline. And it's never going to get easy. You just have to get it done.
All right. So I love those words and everything. We're up to our final. This is our second interview where we go over the 45 marks. I like to always keep it between 30 to 45 minutes when I'm doing interviews. So I'm over the 1 minute mark. So just to wrap things up, I just want to say Sage, thank you so much for actually coming here and actually sitting down with us. We kind of go overboard, but we talk about a lot of things. You gave a lot of insights and everything. And for this last few days or weeks that left from the month, I hope you stick to your goals that you have. I hope you stay consistent. I hope you stay disciplined, because those are the 3 factors. And I hope you continue with your self-awareness and your reflection. And mentally, I hope you get back in a better place. And that start from doing all the things that's within your mind that you know you want to achieve individually within yourself and your life. So I always say, always leave people a quote. Sometimes holding on causes more pain. I heard you wanted to say something, so go ahead before.
I just want to say a big thank you for having me on this podcast. Thank you for the talk. It's been very insightful. And I'm going to steal a plug-in. Go listen to the Polar Bears podcast with me, your host, Says the Cancer, and of course, Maddie, where we talk about polarizing topics, where we hear both sides and we try to find a middle ground. Shout out to the Polar Bears podcast.
Okay, thank you so very much. I love that. Make sure you go and check out the Polar Bear podcast, guy. It's very insightful, all right? So just go over there and get it. Listen to some polarizing conversation.
Yes, sir.
So when you feel like, I give you guys my code for today, it's on resilience, right? So when you feel like giving up, remember why you held on for so long in the first place. So sometimes things may get rough. The road may get rocky. It may get crowdy with a lot of traffic, but make sure to just stay in your lane, because you never want to get caught up in someone else's traffic, because that's the hardest part. That's you losing yourself and actually in their energy. So focus on yours, fix it off that, right? So never give up on what you really want to do. The person with the big dreams is more powerful than one with all the facts. So just know that whatever you're thinking about, that fear, don't let fear win. Don't let procrastination win. Start unknown, finish unforgettable. Fear is the biggest failure. As I always say, many people don't plan to fail. They just fail to plan. All right. Again, my name is Samanta, and thank you for listening to the Stay in Your Lane podcast. If you want to come over, be over. Just come over to the Dasher. Ask for Joe, and he will let you know my days that I'm in for recording. I hope this episode treats you guys good. I hope you find something motivational, and just please remember to drop a comment and like up our video. Stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. Ooh, okay, so I think we're going to hit it to the 50 minutes mark. Before I go, do you have any question for me? Do you have any final words, Sage?
No, I think we had a great episode. Thank you so much for having me on this pod.
Yes, we did. All right, guys, I'm out. As remember, love yourself and stay in your lane. Ready, set, goes. I'm out. Bye.
This has been a production of the Essex County College Podcast Club. Copyright 2024, all rights reserved.